and you deserve the retention rate that you have. Even though it's hard, get that done. A couple weekends ago, there was the $1 billion lottery. I did not win. I am back here doing podcasts. Lucky you guys. So today I want to talk all about how freaking hard it is to keep a client. In today's world, it is so hard and it's overwhelming, and the challenges are great and grave. And I think for so many independent agencies, we're sort of struggling with the idea of retention. Back in the day, it was a lot easier, but back in the day, we did more renewal reviews. We sent birthday cards. We did so many other things that would drive retention. And today, we find a lot of agencies aren't even really using social media or using email marketing to stay in touch with their customers. So agents, we have in many ways been asleep at the wheel of retention strategies, and now we're wondering why it's harder than ever. For me, in agencies I get to work with, we talk a lot about retention because that's where the bulk of the money is. And in all reality, when your book gets to be a certain size, it's very easy to sell a policy to lose a policy, sell a policy, lose a policy, because it's hard to keep up with the new business requirements on a bigger book of just people who move, pass away, sell their business. These are things that we need to take into consideration. So I wanted to, on this podcast, talk a little bit about why our retention is harder than ever. And some of this is a little bit of our own making, but what we know we can prepare for and solve. And that's what I want to tackle today. So one of the big things I see that's holding back retention is the fact that agencies still try to sell and service everybody. And we do fight against this. Now, many agencies have what I call the "we don't write scumbags" clause. So what this means is that they don't write the worst of the worst. I like to say that we should have better standards than people that just don't have prior insurance, people that lie, like, of course. But that's still not our ideal customer. So whether it's we don't write this or we need to focus on our ideal customer, there needs to be written down who our ideal customer is. And then we need to identify how we're going to best serve them. This is a huge strategy. I'm going to use the example of a contractor. So if you love writing contractors, maybe it's important that you open the office at 7 a.m. Doesn't mean that everybody needs to be there, but somebody needs a certificate to get on a job site. Having that is a lifesaver. People value that. If you like writing growing families, maybe your agency needs to have an internship program, a scholarship program, maybe late night once or twice a week for working parents, maybe talking a little bit about different ways for youthful drivers. These are all topics that will be on their mind. But when you know who you want to write, you can customize your service around them so it's truly something that people value. When you want to write everybody, it is very difficult to find the pain points of the masses and then be able to solve them. In fact, it's almost impossible. And this is where we get into transaction mode as opposed to a customer experience. Really identify who your target market is, align your service strategy around that, and then promote that in marketing for a win-win-win, multiple win situation. The next one we have is competition is fierce. I just looked up this number in preparation for the blog on how to increase your retention. So in 2021, the direct writer spent $10 billion with a B dollars on marketing and advertising. That's a crap ton of money, like more money than I could ever imagine winning in the lottery. A couple weekends ago, there was the $1 billion lottery. I did not win. I am back here doing podcasts. Lucky you guys. But the competition is fierce. And so they're spending $10 billion, which means your customers see their messages all day in and out. And if your service isn't tight and right, the second they have a bad transaction, there's no shortage of people willing to pick them up. Now, here's the other thing. Even if they start getting a quote, say Geico, guess what? Geico's not going to stop because they renew the policy with you. They're going to keep at them. They're building a huge database of everybody to go after. Your competition is fierce. Where you can win as a local agent, though, is by being louder and more consistent in your community. So this means getting up the social media channels. This means going to the community events. This means being in people's spaces. If you're not willing to do that, you have to seriously consider your competition is willing to spend $10 billion in marketing. I also say this, I think a lot of independent agencies still struggle with a marketing budget and putting appropriate money towards marketing. We are stingy and cheap. If you only knew what percentage of revenue APP sends on marketing, because we're growing at an 18% clip, which is my goal, I can tell you it's a lot. But I also understand the math behind growing, putting the money into growth, and when that tipping point's going to happen so that that number becomes lower because our revenue becomes higher. And we don't need to spend more, we just need to get more in the door. I understand that methodology. So many agents don't put enough money behind marketing. And some of it is you're not sure where to spend your money on marketing. Some of it is you don't trust your sales team. Some of it is you've been burned before. But the reality is you got to figure it out because your competition is spending $10 billion, or you got to be out there showing your face as many times as possible in your community so you do win those opportunities. The next is that there is, in my personal opinion, not enough high quality customer service training in this industry. I'll get up on my soapbox just for a moment. Y'all know I like to do it from time to time, but I'm gonna do it here. We spend so much time and effort on producer training. I find that producer training is actually, unless you have the right person, a lot of times not fruitful. We spend all this time and money hoping to build a producer, and yet all of our money is being managed by account managers and service team members, and we spend $0 training them. $0 training our account managers. That's redunculous, if you ask me. If I had, let's say, a $5 million asset, and I have my stockbroker could either manage that asset and keep working to grow it, or I can go take a new stockbroker who's looking at the new hottest deals and put all this training into them. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do this tried and true right there with the service team and keeping that growing. Your biggest expense is payroll. Most of your payroll is going to be service team members, and yet we do this zero training for them. How to handle rate increases, how to handle a difficult customer, how to give a great experience, your tone of voice. We do nothing, but we go ahead and we listen to producers all day long and try to build one of them. That to me is broken logic. It's broken thinking. And that's one of the reasons I think this industry is going to struggle with retention coming on, because you have a whole service team, the girls, as people like to say, one of my pet peeves. That's how we treat them. So guess what? There is no option or opportunity for them to turn into licensed professional agents. You're asking them to be that. You're putting no tools in place for them to do it. But you'll go spend a lot of money on a long shot producer that might go to your competition in 2 years. So think through that, noodle that for a moment. Think to yourself, how much have you spent on service training? Where's all your money? If you had a better service team that had better skills, what would that do for your agency? Then call us, because we'll help you with that. The next is tracking your customer service team and the experience that they're given up until about this time. What is it? You could say I was this old when has been rather difficult, but that has changed. And so we have to live in the zero excuse environment. We need to embrace some ways to track our service experience. So knowing that giving great customer service drives referrals, drives retention, drives cross-sells, drives good online reviews, all the things that are going to give your agency a lot of opportunities. So think of it, a good service team is like working out. When you work out, you have less stress, you sleep better, you fight off illness. Does 1,000,001 things. A well-trained service team being able to track that experience is huge. So there's companies like Rocket Referrals, which you'll see in our blog, that's going to track your NPS score to see how your team's doing. There's companies like Donna that will help analyze your book and say where your biggest vulnerabilities are. Today, that technology exists in a manner that we need to embrace. So if you're not embracing the idea that technology can help empower your service team and understand what's going on in your book and be proactive rather than reactive, that's huge. You need to be on the front edge of this. It's a zero excuse environment. Service is no longer a fuzzy thing. We have tools and measurements to track it right now at your fingertips. The final thing that I want to talk about is something I've found rather unfair for a very long time for many agencies, and that is tracking retention is way too hard. In fact, I find most agency management system retention rate reports to be utterly wrong and very vague, which makes it super hard to understand. So when it comes in to the idea of, hey, how do we track our retention? No one trusts the data, so we just avoid it. And we look at carrier reports, we say our retention's high. Like, well, what is high? Really, there's a lot of ways you can track retention. I know of a couple off the top of my head that you could take outside of your management system. I can't say that one is righter or wronger than the other. It's kind of like saying inches and centimeters. They both measure. Your number one goal is to make sure it's going upwards, and that's really what we want to do. So you have to nail down and do the research. We put some blog in here on how we sometimes like to track retention. And you need to commit to the idea of we're going to get it down pat. It might take us a few tries. That's okay. We're going to report on a retention rate every month. Because at a 93% retention rate, you're still losing 7% of your book of business. And if sales isn't selling over 7%, we're not growing. But you do need to commit to it. Even though it's hard, zero excuse environment, outlast the suck. get that done so that you can share that with everybody. And the months where retention lags, it's something we can address. When the retention's up, we can celebrate. It will go up and down. It never stays the same. And you should look at retention from policy, premium, and revenue. I like to look at all three because all three can tell us a little bit of a different story. So this is why we say retention is harder than ever. Now, in our blog, we will actually break down how to increase retention. Everything we talk about: cross-selling, being proactive, embracing technology. Which, by the way, account managers out there, if you listen to this, why don't you want to wear a headset? I get into more fights with account managers about wearing a freaking headset. If you wore a headset and you tried it and you actually embraced it, I guarantee you would like it much more than having your neck do this all day. I think it's just one of those things of like, yeah, it might be weird for a day or two, but it's weird for a day or two, and then you'll be rocking, rolling. I actually hate when I can't find my earbuds because they're like in another room and I have to pick up the phone another way. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. I'm on speakerphone. I don't like it. I need my earbuds. Your headset's the same thing, and it empowers you to be efficient and effective in your role. I'll say this too, in our blog, we talk about documentation. You want to drive retention, you need to have accurate notes on clients so anyone can pick up. There's no jostling, there's no missed steps, there's no dropped balls. Everything is in the system, tight, right, amazing, and that's that. I will tell you the biggest driver of retention is renewal review calls. You may think I'm a broken record. This month's all about retention. Renewal review calls are the cure for so many things. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get great stories of, I'm so glad we did this a year or two ago because the rates of here are going up, or so glad we started doing this because we bought a book and now they can go right into the retention program. But if you're not proactive at renewal, you're not really earning your renewal commission. You're checking it in and hoping for the best, and you deserve the retention rate that you have. And if it's high, it won't be high forever. The retention program, being proactive, is hard to do. And that's one of the things that we specialize in, is working directly with your team, either live, virtual, in person. We have an online school. You have the tools at your fingertips to call every single customer once a year and review their policies. And if freaking out right now is like your whole staff will walk out, I guarantee they won't. Their time will actually get better and they'll have less busy work to do because they're not putting out fires. That is our strategy, just for you guys to know. Take a look at our blog. We've got some great resources in there. And by the way, if you like this and you're on YouTube, give us a like, download our podcast, take a look at the blog, leave a comment. We are here for you guys, and we just want to help agencies grow. That's our podcast for today. Have a great day, everybody.